Good evening. I'm Jim Risto, President and CEO of the Greater Bellevue Area Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Greater Bellevue Area Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for attending the 2014 Bellevue City Political Forum. The Bellevue Chamber serves as a full-time advocate fighting for your interests in the political arena on issues that affect our community. The Bellevue Chamber also advocates, or our advocates also serve as your watchdogs, monitoring business-related political activities. The Bellevue Chamber takes your message face-to-face with elected officials to help ensure Bellevue is a competitive place to run a business. The Bellevue Chamber is your voice in the political arena. It is our pleasure tonight to host tonight's political forum. The format for this evening will include a 3-minute opening from each of the 2 mayoral candidates, then a question and answer session where each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question. On a rotating basis, followed by a 1-minute rebuttal from the candidate that answered first. And we'll help them remind them of this. At the end of the question and answer portion, each candidate will have a 2-minute closing. Following the mayoral forum tonight, we'll take a quick break to reset the stage, and then we'll go to our city council forum, where each of our city council candidates will have a 3-minute opening, followed again by a question and answer session, where each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions, again on a rotating basis, as to who goes first. There will not be a rebuttal on each of these questions. Each candidate will then finish the evening with a 2-minute closing. Tonight's event is also being recorded and will be shown on Channel 17, BTV, beginning sometime next week, along with YouTube and other social media outlets. We want to thank our candidates for volunteering to run for office, and it's my pleasure tonight, and I'd like to welcome Joe Jordan to the stage. He's here with me. Longtime investigative journalist Joe Jordan is the managing editor and investigative reporter for Nebraska Watchdog. Joe has spent the past 40 years as a political and investigative reporter on both radio, television, and the internet. He has worked in Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and then we changed to Nebraska. It was all I's, and then we just switched to N. But Joe's been in Nebraska since 1980, and some of you may remember him at KMTV, CBS affiliate, and then since 2009 has been with Nebraska Watchdog. Having interviewed top newsmakers, including U.S. presidents from Gerald Ford to Barack Obama, Jordan has a unique experience and qualifications to uncover, reveal, and inform the public about important governmental issues. He's covered several national political conventions, along with 7 Nebraska governors and 11 Omaha mayors. It's quite a term, isn't it? Jordan has received numerous journalism awards, including the Walter Cronkite Award for Political Journalism on Television and Columbia University's DuPont Award for Investigations. Please welcome Joe Jordan to the stage here.
That just means I've been around a long time. Good evening. Having put those formalities out of the way, we would now like to introduce and welcome the 2 candidates for mayor to the stage. Please join us now. Feel free to applaud. And while they make their way up here, I'm going to go over the ground rules one more time. Each candidate may give a 3-minute opening statement and 2-minute closing statement. Questions will be geared to both candidates, with each having 2 minutes to respond, and the candidate who gets the question first will then get 1 minute to follow up. Now, directly in front of the stage is the timekeeper, and she will give you a 1-minute warning, a 15-second warning, and a stop sign when your time is up. After that, there's no guarantees. Please honor the time limits as we've set them for the audience and for yourselves. As a moderator, I reserve the right to ask individual candidates for follow-ups, clarification, and to interrupt if necessary to keep everything on schedule. Now, our opening statements will begin with Rita Sanders. Rita, thank you.
I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. Thank you to the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event, Joe Jordan for moderating, and Bellevue University for this lovely facility. But for all of you that have taken your time out, I know you have busy schedules too, so thank you so much for taking the time out to be here this evening. I don't run for re-election because I don't have anything else to do. I really care about this city. I love this city. In the last 4 years, I have learned so much about the city, and I've learned a lot about people and human nature for sure. Everybody has a self-interest. Everyone wants something, and how we balance that and how we make that work is so important. Over the last 4 years, the first 2 years, it was about building relationships in the city, right within the city, and making the city function as an organization, as a business, and building up that trust with all of those within the city, as well as the council, the administration, and every department head. When I first took office, the first thing I did was have a meeting with all the managers, all the department heads. And the first item that they thought was going to be on the table is that I was going to fire them all. That was not the case. Let's see what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and do you know what your jobs are, and how do we work together to build that? So together we move forward on hiring a city administrator, qualified, licensed, certified, to try and get the city into a place, into a budget. We had a fast-growing deficit, and we needed to get a rein on that, and we have. We've all worked together. Every single council member are totally engaged in what's going on in the city. The city department heads and every employee in the city are engaged on what their jobs are, what they need to do to meet the budget, and be responsible for that budget. And I have a responsibility to continue that for the next 4 years. So I thank you for being here and allowing me the time. Thank you.
Rita Sanders, thank you. Chuck Frederick, your opening statement, please.
Yes, again, thank the Chamber for doing this event, and Joe Jordan for being the moderator, and also for all you people who are out there today. Of course, I believe you can watch on Channel 17 after today, too. Also, I do want to say for Mrs. Sanders that she is a very nice lady, very popular, belongs to a lot of community organizations, but this should not be a popularity contest. It isn't who is the most popular and who has the most money. I hear all the time, I go to all the city council meetings, you've heard me or watched me on Channel 17 many times if you've watched Channel 17, and I hear the phrase, moving forward, let's move forward. Well, if you're going over, just about ready to go over a cliff, you don't want to go forward. You want to change direction, and that's what I'm going to do when I'm mayor. I'm going to change the team that we have right now who is running the city. The mayor does not really run the city. The people that he or she appoints really runs the city. So I'm going to have a new city administrator, a new city attorney, in-house attorney, not a contracted one, and also a new city treasurer. Our legal fees last year were over $419,000 with a contracted attorney. Papillion went to a full-time city attorney, and 2 years ago got a full-time city attorney, assistant city attorney, and their legal fees are less than they are right now. We really have to make some changes. I hear the one thing is that you'll be hearing about, I've talked about many times, is having a monthly balance sheet. You can't run a business or a city without having a monthly balance sheet. We have not had one. The finance director in Council Bluffs, first thing he did 6-7 years ago, we go to a monthly balance sheet. It's just some of the things that we have to do. I think the people here have been shortchanged in Bellevue. We have our swimming pools are in bad shape. We don't have splash pads. We should have two, one in Northwest Bellevue, one in Everett Park. We don't have the library closed on Sunday. I'm going to change that so it's open on Sunday. We're going to have put back the library box up in Northwest Bellevue, where the drop box where we've had it. And the other interesting thing is I talked to the library commission guy the other day, and he said that he had made a presentation to City Council about doing where the new library should be, and he said that he had made another presentation, 36 across Anderson Grove Church, and now the city has that land for sale. Why would you sell the land as to where you're going to build a library? It just doesn't make sense.
Mr. Frederick, thank you. And the first question will also go to Chuck Frederick. Mr. Frederick, often the mayor becomes the face of a community. Can you please explain your vision for the future of Bellevue and your role as that face of Bellevue?
Sure. I have a vision for the city, and the main thing when you have a vision, you have to implement that vision. If you don't, it's just an illusion. I think in the past we have had visions, but they haven't been implemented. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that whatever vision I have for the city, and I've had one for a long time, is how to make this city a better city. We have to cut taxes. We have to cut down our costs for what we spend in the city, and we have to encourage new businesses to come in here. And we have ordinances and other things that people just won't come in here. The main thing is, if you don't take care of the people who are here, living here right now, and with the residents, what company is going to come here and want to move here when they can go to a place like Papillion or La Vista where they take care of their people? It just it doesn't make much sense. So I'm going to be a salesman. That's what I am. I've sold all my life, and I'm going to sell Bellevue in a better way than it's been sold in the past. I just think it's a shame that we've fallen so far behind the rest of the cities in Sarpy County. And so that would probably be the main thing I would do. We need, like I said, the new splash pads. We need those to help attract people here. If you have a business, why are you going to come here to Bellevue when they don't take care of the residents? If you don't, and they have kids, people who have businesses have children and families. Why would they come here when they don't have the amenities that they have in Papillion or La Vista? It just doesn't make sense. So we have to, first of all, take care of our city, our residents, and once we do that, then we'll be able to attract more businesses too. I think my time's up, so thank you.
Rita Sanders, your vision for the future of Bellevue?
Thank you. I'd like to first address Mr. Frederick. When you say you want to cut taxes, when you say you cut taxes, you are also cutting services. What services will those be? Those are important, hard decisions to make, and we have to make those every day. Every department head has been responsible for those decisions and those budget cuts so we could meet the budget. It's always, and it sounds great when we say we're going to cut taxes, but what else are we cutting? Nobody in this room wants their service cut. You can cut my library, but not theirs, or they can cut their library, not mine. Don't cut my services. Those are hard decisions to make, and we have to have that team approach. And so that's what I see as the face for the city, is working as a team. It isn't just me out there. Everyone in the city, whether it's the council, the administration, the department heads, or the employees, we have to work together. We have to work together outside of the city with our Chamber of Commerce to bring in development, economic development. One of the things that we have to do is retain businesses that are already here. We have Offutt Air Force Base here. What are we doing about that to retain them here? They're the largest employee in the state of Nebraska. We have a large military retirement citizens that live here in our city. So we've got to do retention. We've got to work together as a team. And when I say move forward, we move forward fiscally to do the things that we want to do. Currently, we have a convention center that we're going to be breaking ground with soon. And so those are some great things that will provide amenities for our city and citizens here.
Mr. Frederick, you have a rebuttal.
You can cut taxes and not reduce services. I talked to a lady the other day who lived in Papillion, and her parents from New Orleans were here, and there was some broken glass in the street in Papillion, and she didn't know what to do for sure, but she finally called she said, I'll call the city. So she called the city. They went to lunch. They came back. The glass was picked up already. That's the kind of service that we can still do. Now, another lady was complaining because in Papillion because their taxes went up. We still have the second highest mill levy in the state, which is not attractive for businesses to come in here. But this lady was complaining about Papillion raising their taxes, but also increasing their services. Well, I said, well, how would you like to live in Bellevue where you get your taxes are increased and your services are cut?
Before we go to the next question, Mayor Sanders, do you think there are services to cut or not to cut?
I think we're on pretty bare bones right now, but we did have services that were cut. But those services that were cut were made on the decision from each department head. The council set the budget. The department heads, parks, library, police, fire, public works, roads, all went back into their departments and they found those cuts. And they're living with those cuts, and we support them.
And Mr. Frederick, just to be clear, are you saying that there are no services you would cut, but still would cut taxes?
I think we can do that. The thing that bothers me, and I heard it from a councilperson Monday night. I said, you know, we hired a state auditor. We hired our auditor for another additional 5 years, which is way too long. But she said when she was up, one of them from the auditing firm was up making a presentation that you don't need anybody more in the finance department. And yet they're going to hire another person for $80,000. So if they're believing this auditing firm, they're hired for 5 years, why wouldn't you listen to them? And I told that to one of the council people, and that person said, well, it's in the budget. Just because it's in the budget is just something that is an outline for how things should be, but doesn't mean it can't be changed. So the answer is in the budget. I heard that when I was in the city council. I also heard the term cut to the bone, just cut to the bone, and that it wasn't the case. There are things we can do to reduce salaries, just like that for the full-time city attorney versus the contracted one. That's just one example. I'm also not happy with having the assistant city administrator. We shouldn't have had that until we get our finances in shape. So I would eliminate that job if at all possible. So we can cut salaries, we can cut some jobs, we can cut some things, and instead of just cutting the janitorial women that were down there in Bellevue, maybe we can cut some of the higher paid people who aren't doing their jobs.
Okay. On that note, we'll move forward, but I think this may be a theme we're going to go back to throughout the evening here. Rita Sanders, this next question goes to you first. Could you name the 3 most important issues that you believe need to be addressed in the next first year as mayor, and briefly describe what your role would be in addressing each of those 3 items?
So one of the things is economic development. When I'm out shopping, working in the yard, people say to me, why don't we have Shadow Lake? Why don't we have Cabela's? And so I went to those cities 5, 6 years ago when I looked at running for mayor and asked them, why are you successful? And they knew the answer. And the answer was the city of Bellevue has never had an assistant city administrator that worked full-time on economic development. We only have tax increment finance, TIF. We do not have LB 840 or Proposition 1 that's on the ballot today. So we do not have those things in place. And by saying we're going to get rid of the assistant administrator that we finally have that works full-time on economic development, we put ourselves in the back seat again. Right now, with the convention center that the chamber and the city has worked on together, Larry Burks, assistant city administrator, found $1 million to make that happen. He has been able to position himself to even pay for his own salary because he has the opportunity and the time to work on that.
Okay. Mr. Frederick?
Well, so all this time that we didn't have a city administrator, we couldn't do the job, we just got one recently, that doesn't make sense to me. He's working on doing a logo for one thing. He's grasping for things to do. He worked on leasing the cell phone towers for 40 years. We get $2 million, but we lose 40 years income. That was a bad deal as far as I'm concerned. But that helped make the budget look better when we got that $2 million. I don't think we need assistant city administrator until we get our finances in order. Our financial house is not in order right now. We don't do a monthly balance sheet. You can't, the reports I get the reports every month for the financials, and they're not good financials. They don't even tell everything. So until we get our financial officer and our treasurer to present numbers that are transparent and we can understand, that's my #1 goal, to do that, first of all.
Rita Sanders, 1 minute.
We have a finance director and a department that has worked really hard along with the council that demand that we keep things in order. Inside the budget, the monthly budget is a balance sheet. It's been shown to you, it has been explained to you. you've actually gone back and said, it's too much information. The audit team has done a thorough job with our budget, and there's nothing there to hide. We're very transparent. Anyone here can ask to see that. It can be emailed to you. You can stop in the finance department anytime. But we've worked hard to be in that position, and I really, I take offense when you say that, because we work really hard to make sure that that's in the monthly budget and we have a balance sheet.
Mr. Frederick, I'm going to give you a minute to respond to that.
Sure, I can go up to Papillion right now, go to Dan Hoynes and ask for a balance sheet. He can push a button. Rick Sanders cannot do that. One time back a year or so ago, I asked him to do a balance sheet. He finally came out with one, and I gave it to the council people. It didn't even balance. It wasn't even a balance sheet. They do not do a monthly balance sheet. As simple as that. And when you don't do a monthly balance sheet, you can't run a city or a business. I don't think there's anybody in this audience or going to be watching this on Channel 17 who doesn't have a business, who has a successful business that doesn't do a balance sheet on a monthly basis. And that's not true. I'd love to see Rick Severson give me a balance sheet, monthly balance sheet, or a balance sheet as this coming Monday. I'd like to see it.
This next question sort of refers back to comments that Rita Sanders made a second ago, and I'm just going to kind of edit this once we go through. And Mr. Frederick, it goes to you first. Based solely on the economic development that has taken place in the communities around Bellevue, what do you see as the biggest roadblock in economic development for the city of Bellevue and the growth here? And could you address why you believe Bellevue doesn't have Cabela's, Bellevue doesn't have Shadow Lake?
I think they have to be sold on it a little bit, but it just depends upon those companies deciding. The city doesn't decide as much as the companies decide where they want to be. But we got to encourage them by creating an atmosphere where they're invited to come here. And I mentioned before about having the services for our residents here, so that the people who are coming in believe in that. I also, a number of years back, and it's on the records in the minutes, where I suggested we do what Shenandoah does, or did at one time. And there, even though it's a smaller city, they had a situation where you could, if you could get a person you knew, a cousin, uncle, friend from a different city that might come to Shenandoah, they would be paid so much per employee. And there's no reason why we can't get all of you involved in trying to get some businesses to come in here, because they don't know how nice Bellevue is. If they had a chance to see maybe and saw that we're going in the right direction instead of going over the cliff, then maybe they might come here. But that's one of the ideas I had. I've got lots of ideas on that.
Rita Sanders, the biggest roadblock to the growth of Bellevue?
Our lack of incentives. Currently on the ballot for this election, we have LB 840, which is Proposition 1. That would allow us to take, when there is surplus, to put into that line item so we can have incentives. For example, when Cabela's comes to your city, they expect a certain amount of infrastructure to be done, and you're allowed to use those dollars for infrastructure. Our biggest area of growth is going to be the Highway 34 corridor. What are we doing to get ready for that? We have no incentives that we can use down there, and we don't have any money that we can use. A line item, LB 840, would be the ticket for that. We have to have those type of incentives in place and say, we have control over this land. Here is the dollars for the road that we can build. What are those things that you need, Mr. Cabela's, when you come into our city? They might like it because we're all nice citizens, but it takes a lot more than that.
Mr. Frederick?
Well, again, I think that you just have to, as a salesperson, what I'll do is do my best to try to sell Bellevue to as many people as I can. I'll let the people I appoint, who will be experienced, honest, people with integrity, that will run the city, and then the mayor can do some of the things that he or she wants to do in order to try to expand the city. Like I said, the one idea I had, but just contacting people. One that I just saw in the paper the other day was, I think, a pizza place called Toppers. I've had their pizza and their wings when I was out to my sons. They have one in West Omaha and they have one down in Lincoln. I would certainly contact them right away and suggest that maybe they might want to consider having one down here. I mean, restaurants are the only thing, but that would be one that we could consider. Just one idea.
Mr. Frederick, Rita Sanders has made it very clear that she believes that Proposition 1 needs to be approved by the voters. Are you voting for or against Proposition 1?
I'm voting for it.
So you also feel that those incentives would be helpful?
Any incentive we can get, we do have to use. The only ones I don't like using is the tax increment financing where we didn't have to use it. We didn't have to use it for Menards. They would have come here anyway. Over in Council Bluffs, they wanted tax increment financing, and City of Council Bluffs didn't give them tax increment financing, and they went ahead and built there anyway. So I think we have to be really careful who we give tax increment financing to.
Next question, we'll go to Rita Sanders first. And this sort of dovetails in this whole economic development issue we're talking about right now. What is Bellevue's image, do you think, in the business community? And as mayor, how would you improve it?
Bellevue is a very patriotic city. Again, we have many retired military here in Bellevue. There is a warm and fuzzy feeling when you're in Bellevue. When I'm outside of Bellevue, people say to me all the time, I really like Bellevue. What I like first and foremost is our public safety. We have great police and fire. So that's first and foremost on many people's mind when they move into a city, when they look at our city. What does your public safety look like? And we rate top notch there. Our deer, our trees, they get a warm and fuzzy feeling, but it takes a whole lot more than that. Last week I was able to speak with International Site Selector, and they actually, when they come into your city and they look at putting a business in your city, they take a taxi cab, they go into the churches, and they go to council meetings, and they listen to what citizens are saying about their own city. So all of you that are here that are doing positive things in our city, we have many, many hundreds of volunteers every day, whether it's Meals on Wheels, whether it's the ALS, MS, Habitat for Humanity, all doing amazing, wonderful things in our city. And those are the positive things we need to keep talking about, moving about. When you speak of negative things for our city, that doesn't reflect well in our city at all. And I raised my kids, and I live by this mantra: if you're gonna complain, be part of the solution.
Mr. Frederick, Bellevue's image in the business community, what is it and how would you improve it?
My complaints are ones that are legitimate complaints, and I am part of the solution, and I will solve those problems. One of the things I stole from Pete Ricketts, or part of it was his slogan was bold and bald. Mine is bold and old. I also suggested that for the city of Bellevue for a slogan at a city council meeting. We're going to do a lot of positive things once I'm mayor. It won't be negative, just be changing the team that's there now and directing it the right way instead of going over the cliff. We just have to start with our financial situation. It is not good right now. And if we don't get that taken care of, people are always wondering why we don't have transparency, and we don't. One time I brought the thing that Papillion mails to all their employees. I should have brought it tonight maybe, but they mail that it's complete as to what is going on in Papillion. And that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have that type of piece of literature or pamphlet mailed to every resident so they can see through the transparency just what is happening in Bellevue. And when they see these good things happening, that will help attract businesses too.
Rita Sanders, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
Mr. Frederick, may I be the first one to invite you to move to Papillion? You talk about Papillion, they're a third the size of our city. They do business differently. They do not have Offutt Air Force Base in the middle of their city. We work hard, we are a great city, and you compare us to a city that you can't compare us to. They're smaller than us, they don't have a river like us, and if you want Papillion, move to Papillion. Thank you.
Mr. Frederick, are you moving?
No, I don't think I'll move it, but I wouldn't mind moving some of the people that are on the staff right now and some of the elected officials maybe, but I use that as a comparison because we can set our goals higher by looking at someone who's doing a better job. And that's not complaining, that's not making it look like we can't do better, and we can do better, but we can't if we don't see what other cities are doing and make a comparison. And in comparison, we're not doing well right now.
Okay. The next question will go to Mr. Frederick first, and it's a little long, so bear with me for 1 second. Under state statutes and the city code, the city of Bellevue has what is known as a weak mayor system, which means that the mayor has only limited power to appoint certain department heads and to vote only when there is a tie vote by the city council. Now, the city's charter provides for the city administrator to run the day-to-day activities of the city and to interact with the city council on setting meeting agendas and determining direction for the city. Now, some would say that a weak mayor system means that the position of mayor is largely symbolic, with the role limited to attending community group events, recognizing award winners, proclamations, and similar functions. Mr. Frederick, for starters, what do you see as your role as mayor in the city of Bellevue?
There's nothing wrong with a weak mayor system, and although Mrs. Sanders might complain again because I'm using Dave Black as an example for the mayor of Papillion, but he knows how to use the weak mayor system properly. And what the weak mayor does, as I've said before, they appoint 4 people, and those 4 people run the city. They're going to be the city administrator, city attorney, the city treasurer, and the city clerk. Unfortunately, we just lost our city clerk, Kate Amos, just retired. She was a fantastic city clerk, very knowledgeable, and right now there were 3 people interviewed for the job of city clerk. One of them is Kate Damas, city clerk's assistant, Sabrina. And the funny thing was, number one, that they never even asked Kate Damas her opinion as to what she felt who should be the next city clerk. And she thinks that Sabrina can do a fantastic job, and there's no reason to hire somebody now until after the election, because after the election, if that person is appointed now, that person could not be the person that the mayor would appoint for the next 4 years. So I don't know why they're trying to rush this through, just like they're trying to rush through other things. They're trying to hire like another finance person. No reason to rush through things right now. Let's wait and see what happens in the election, and then make the logical decisions at that time.
Rita Sanders, 2 minutes.
I first would like to address the new clerk position. We are going through the proper interview process. We posted the job, there was a job description, an interview process, and now a selection process. We have to do that. It's part of our HR rules policy, and we have to do that diligently and make sure we get the right person. Did I ask Kate Amass who would be the right person? Absolutely. She has an opinion. But with an opinion, we also have to abide by the laws, and that is what we're working through right now. We may very well end up with her recommendation, but I still need to go through the correct process. I think the number one thing as the mayor is building relationships. It is so important that we build those relationships with our citizens, with our council, and then let's take a step outside of Bellevue with the mayors in the surrounding community. I have a great relationship with Mayor Black. He's a wonderful person. We call each other, we have each other's cell phone. We work together. We're proud that we work together. And we need to do that outside of even Sarpy County with our commissioners as well as our Nebraska legislature. I know them by name, they know me by name, we exchange cell phone numbers. Outside of that, with our federal delegation, we have to work hard because we do have Offutt Air Force Base in our city, and it's important that we work with our federal delegation. So I work hard on relationships and partnerships, and that's the asset that I think I bring to the city of Bellevue.
Mr. Frederick?
once I'm mayor, I'll have all those cell phone numbers too. And I know Dave Black very well. I know the people in Papillion. They're Christian people. Dave is. So is Dan Hoyne, city minister, and so is Bill Bowles, the fire chief. And we have some good Christian people on our staff right now. And the only thing I do want to mention too is that before I forget about it, is that I am pro-life, and I'm the only one that is endorsed by Nebraska United for Life. So I just want to say that. But there, once you're in there, there's no reason that I won't have access to all the things that Mrs. Sanders had in the past and be able to work with the same people the same way.
The next question was supposed to be about Proposition 1 and how everybody stands, but I think we already know that. Given that, I think we've got probably a little bit of time left. If I could just ask maybe one or two questions that we can just probably, then
Sure.
before we go to your closing statements. Throughout the evening, we've been talking about economic development for the city of Bellevue and how you're going to get there. And I do think it's fair to say that lower taxes usually entice businesses to come. Rita Sanders, can you lower taxes without cutting the services as you referred to earlier?
No. It just won't work, because first time ever, city did a survey. First item, nobody wanted to cut public safety. How do you continue public safety in a growing city with growing concerns and yet cut? We can't cut the budget. We all want to have a salary, we all want retirement and benefits. I appreciate everything that our public safety officers do. The men and women, police, fire, that are on the street day and night, working to keep us safe while we can go on with our businesses, we can go on to sleep safe at night and not worry about those things. The city of Bellevue, we can leave our door unlocked and not worry about it. That only happens in Bellevue. You go a couple miles just north or south of here, that doesn't happen. So our public safety is important, it's vital. We cannot cut their services, we cannot cut their salary, we cannot cut their benefits. When we start cutting into public safety, we start threatening our city. Thank you.
Mr. Frederick, I don't know if you used the phrase tonight, but I was looking through some of the previous city council meeting minutes, and you oftentimes refer to cutting the fat. Other than the I think it's three individuals you wouldn't hire if you're mayor, what other fat is out there? And the reason I ask is because I'm guessing eliminating those three positions wouldn't save an enormous amount of money to lower taxes very much. So what beyond those three, I guess the question is, where's the fat?
Well, there's a lot, but the thing is that having in-house city attorney will cut our expenses quite a bit. And that's why I said before, Papillion has a full-time city attorney, hired assistant city attorney, and their legal fees are less than what they were before. But another area that I've talked about for a number of times in the past where we have certainly spent way too much money is with the rescue squad billing. We had a company doing it where they were collecting $70,000 a month and had over $1 million they collected, and we got rid of them. So the fire department, the fire chief said he could do it better, and instead of collecting $70,000 a month, he's collecting about half that amount. He came in front of the city council and wanted the city council to collect $540,000 that he couldn't collect. And I asked numerous times, how are we doing with that collection of $540,000? Then eventually one time, never got an answer from the finance director or anybody else on the council or anybody else, but I asked how much they collected, and finally fire chief came up after I spoke and said, we've collected about 2%. Now, so right there, what was that, 2%, about $10,000, $12,000, and maybe they got 50%, but that, we've lost about $2 million at least by having the fire department do the rescue squad billing, and that should be taken away from, and even Ron Peacock from the Bellevue Leader wrote an editorial saying that the fire department should not do the rescue squad billing. That's not part of what they should do. So there's other places I'm sure I can find where we can get people to do their job either better, otherwise they're not doing their job, maybe they shouldn't be there.
Rita Sanders, do you want to respond to that? I mean, $2 million is a lot of money.
For those of you that are in the medical business, you know what it's like to collect. When we have an ambulance service provided to a citizen and we send them a bill, there's a process that goes through of Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross, and there's a negotiable agreement in some of those cases. After all that is said and done, we have to write those things off. That's included in those numbers. That has to be reflected by law. So it's not that we're not collecting all of them. Some of that we cannot collect because it's a negotiable dollar amount on each of those services and different insurances. So you can't say we're not collecting. We can collect a lot more when the collection agencies have tried. And when a person decides not to pay their bill, the council has directed 2 tries and we write it off. That is council directed. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I think we're going to go to the closing statements. And Mr. Frederick, you go first. You've got 2 minutes.
Okay, well, again, thank you all for coming. I think the thing that you should do to get a better picture of where I stand, all you have to do is look at the minutes for the last 7 years. I've been involved with city government for over 15 years, 4 years in the city council. Before that, I was attending meetings. I've attended afterwards. I'm doing my best to try and make this a better city. So I'm positive in trying to do that. I think what you should do is definitely look at my website, and that's chuckfrederick.com, and it's FREDRICK. And after you look at that, I have a link to the voterinformation.org. And then you'll see my answers versus Mrs. Sanders' answers, and even though she's sent her answers in 30 days after the deadline, you can see it, make a comparison of the two. But again, I do want to just thank everybody here for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I wish I had more time just to sit and I would certainly love to have a situation where we could just sit down, you and I, and talk on Channel 17 and go through things and see what happens that time. A friendly discussion, but let's go through that. But also, I'd also would invite anybody who has a service club, if they want me to speak before the election, I'd love to do that. But other than that, I just say I would appreciate your vote, and God bless Bellevue.
Rita Sanders, 2 minutes.
To comment on Chuck Frederick's statement of going to his website, that is his opinion. So when you do go, if you go onto his website, it is his opinion. What I recommend, if you really want the true story, is go to City Hall. Talk to the police on the street, talk to the firemen on the street, talk to the clerk's office. It is open. It's for the public. Get their opinion. It is not my opinion. It is not Mr. Frederick's opinion. It is their opinion who work for you every day in City Hall. I want to say thank you again to the Bellevue Chamber for hosting this event. Mr. Jordan, I'm not sure if you were commenting, prodding, but thank you for being here. And all the citizens here that took the time to come out this evening. I am honored to have served as your mayor for 4 years. If I receive your vote, and I'm the mayor again for 4 years, I will continue to do the same. I will roll up my sleeves. I will work hard. If there is a problem in the city, I will tackle that. I return all my phone calls, and the trust and the faith that you have in me to do the job is greatly appreciated. And again, I am honored, and if you vote for me again, greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Rita Sanders, Chuck Frederick, thanks both of you for being here tonight. On behalf of Nebraska Watchdog, I too would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to be here tonight on stage with these 2 candidates. You know where to vote on November 4th. They're going to take about 15 minutes to set up, I think, for the city council debates. And again, thank you all for being here tonight.